Good evening, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. Joy, would you please call the roll?
Hamilton.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Revelinsky.
Yes.
Boyer.
Yes.
Ledger-Kalin.
Yes.
Hamas.
Yes.
Hallie.
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any changes or additions to this evening's agenda? Yeah, Michael, you wanted to add report by environmental committee, or are we just going to go ahead and
you'll probably cover it in the
refer to
tree
that on the
committee.
trees, the city tree appointments? Okay. Also, I wanted to just mention before we begin, are there folks here for a discussion on the ordinance allowing for deer hunting in the city? It was announced in the ledger that there would be a vote on that tonight. That's not the case. There's simply going to be a committee report to review an ordinance that is going to be proposed. That ordinance will have to go through three readings. We will not be taking one of those readings on it tonight. So it will begin on October 28th is when we will have our public discussion on that. So we're not going to have a public discussion. There won't be any vote of the council tonight, but we will be reviewing that. I just wanted to clarify that for those of you who came, in case it is at the end of the agenda, so I don't want to ruin your evening. All right, thanks very much. We'll move to our consent agenda. We have approval of minutes from our September 23rd and then our special meeting on October 1st. We have approval of a liquor and beer license for Fairfield RE Fraternal Order of the Eagles, and approval of claims in the amount of $447,945.36. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Moved by Hamilton.
Second.
Second by Boyer. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Hamilton.
Yes.
Boyer.
Yes.
Hamas.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Hallie.
Yes.
Ledger-Kalin.
Yes.
Revelinsky.
Yes, but abstain on the meeting, on the October 1st minutes.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll move to our public forum and appearances. We have Don Sanders from the Jefferson County Alcohol Consumption Task Force. Don?
Well, good evening. On behalf of the coalition, I want to thank you for giving us some time tonight. I want to bring the council up to date on our activities since the last time that we met. As you recall that conversation, we were talking about the two sources of alcohol in Jefferson County. One is, of course, adult supplied alcohol, and the other one is retailers who are selling to underage. On the adult supplied alcohol, we worked with the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors, and they partnered with the coalition, and now we have adopted a social host ordinance. That will be, I think it's through its 60-day period, sometime in the middle of November. So we want to thank them for that effort to get that in place. On the other hand, I would like to say that we made some strides with retailers selling to underage, but considering what we said we were going to do to the safety committee and the meetings with all of the retailers, for us to see still 6 businesses that failed. 3 of those were back to back. It doesn't give us great feelings that the retail community is necessarily partnering with us to eliminate that source of alcohol. So we're here tonight, I'm here tonight on behalf of the coalition to ask that the City Council undertake really 2 measures to help us with this problem. One is to begin discussion of a city social host ordinance. That we think will give both a county and a city perspective of what the problem is and how can we best address it. As a community and as a county, we're asking that we begin serious discussions about a social host ordinance. The second thing is that we asked the council to consider some type of some type of a method or some accountability for our retailers. As you know, when we first came, we said we wanted to have mandatory training certificates when they apply for a new license or license renewal. When we had our public hearing with the retailers, they didn't want to do that. We did everything that the retailers asked us to do, and we still had an inordinately high amount of compliance checks failures. So with that, I will just leave it with you. However we want to begin this work, I'm always ready. The coalition is always ready. But it's something that I think we need to really invest to get us to that next level.
Okay, thank you, Don. Council, any response?
I did see your letter that you wrote to the retailers, and in there you didn't include anything about their the benefits, to them other than that we talked about in that meeting.
Yes, what happened in that case is we did follow-ups.
Okay.
We sent the letter out to all 43 retailers. I think that's right, 43 that we sent out, and then we paid personal visits to the retailers, and we said, okay, let's make sure that you understand the letter and the benefits of that. With me tonight is Kitty Bodle. She's the training specialist for CETA. So to the extent of what we could, we complied with that, and still to get this number was I think a little bit disappointing. To see some improvement, we kind of expected that, but I thought we could have done better.
Is there any evidence that just being persistent with your track right now is going to yield better results? I mean, if there was just one meeting with the realtors, with the retailers, are you going to continue to meet with them? Are you going to continue the educational process, give them the benefit of the doubt that there's just more that needs to be done?
I think when we left that, it was clearly that they asked from us for an open channel of communication. They wanted more communication, more personal contact, more information sharing, and so on and so forth. And when we benchmarked that, we looked for specific things even before we got to the compliance checks, because that's where the real money comes in and the harm comes in and the fines and all that other stuff. We in that letter, you will have noticed that we did put in that we had a customized training program for either owners and managers or employees that Kitty has scaled down, much like the RAGBRAI training that she had done here. And we still had, I think, 3 or 4 that showed up for that. So I'm not sure whether they're hearing us or whether they share the same view of the problem that we do. But I'm looking for guidance on what more we can do, because as long as there's grant funding for the foreseeable future, we're going to come out and we're going to continue to do more and more and more of these. And I hate to see $750 fine for hourly employee is a ton of money, but that's part of this process.
Okay.
Have you followed up with any of them that did not pass?
Yes, probably the guy that's I thought personally that did a great job up to the point that they failed the test, and that was Hy-Vee. Eric Porter is a wonderful partner. He really is. He stood right there beside us from beginning to end. He's very diligent, but we had reports building up to the compliance checks that they were not probably doing the procedure as fully as they should have. And then, of course, obviously we sent somebody in, and so they did fail that. So there are really I'm not sure where the explanations would lie. I'm concerned about the 3 places who failed back to back. That's pretty bad.
Don, and I'm looking at that list also, and outside of Hy-Vee, I see all relatively new license holders within a 2-year period or something like that. Can that be factored in?
Yes. In fact, probably a great example of that is Burning Oak. When they just opened up, I guess, right around the time of RAGBRAI, if I'm correct there. She made immediate contact with Kitty. Kitty came down and did the 2.5-hour training program for her and her staff, and then also followed it up with the individual training program, which is kind of what we said we would do. And they had no issues with passing that. I think it's if they're culturally involved in helping us prevent, underage drinking. That's just my opinion. I think if they're culturally involved with that, we can do better. But it's, what are we missing?
Part
I
of it's
think-
their attitude, too.
Yeah, I think the mayor's point, though, is that on the retailers that fail the compliance checks, they're fairly new, except for Hy-Vee. So the people that were at that meeting of retailers that really didn't want to have, laws and rules put in place that they had to mandatory, none of those people are on this list.
The three of them that we did do this time came out of the previous operation. So, and we will continue to do that. We think it's just, we want to make sure that there's a high visibility of law enforcement and the grant with those organizations. Hopefully, they'll take advantage of what's available, and hopefully we won't have to deal with that with those again. So. But we're looking for any kind of help we can get, because this, I felt we complied with their requests, and to still see that high failure rate, I was a little bit concerned about that.
Okay. The council, is there interest in pursuing a social host ordinance? If so, we refer this to the Public Safety Committee.
I think it's reasonable that we look at it. And would that basically be the same as the counties laid out?
You can tailor it to the city.
Well, certainly.
We-
but
we'll certainly
what
work
you're
with John
suggesting is
and-
be something similar, obviously.
Right.
So you can bring us a sample. I
Yes,
guess is what I'm
absolutely.
saying.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, a question.
Okay. So if go ahead, John.
Well, just as far as the other point, then accountability for retailers. So specifically, I remember in the discussion last time, the idea was that this training's available, and our summation of it before, what we took from it before was, well, let's make it optional for the retailers and encourage them to take advantage of it. And so what you're saying is not that many took advantage of it, and then we have some people who could probably really benefit from it.
Absolutely.
And so you haven't said it here, but what you're going for is that the city pass some kind of ordinance that says all retailers must go through this training. Or now, Joy, didn't you say at the time if they fail a compliance test like this, that they have to take the training then? Or
No, that was a proposal.
Yeah.
okay, that was a
So what we were
that's not
trying to
in
do
place.
is not punish the ones that are doing what they're supposed to do and voluntarily do this already.
Right. So
What
in
we
other
were
words,
looking
they
at
may
was-
already be trained. Their employees may already be trained properly. But-
Right.
And so maybe what your coalition is looking for is some kind of ordinance that says, yeah, if you fail a background check,
Well, that's different than the social host ordinance.
right.
So-
Yes, it is.
That's two
Yeah.
different things.
Right, right.
Absolutely.
And then my question would be, why bring up the social host ordinance if you're trying to really target the retailers?
Well, two different things.
It's two different things.
Yeah.
One of the big problems that we've had is somebody's going out and buying alcohol for these youth, but they're going to certain houses repetitively and having repetitive parties. And all they say is, well, you can cite the youth for drinking underage, but I didn't provide them that alcohol. I just provided them a place to have to consume the alcohol. Nobody's making sure those kids don't that stay there. Have a designated driver to get home and things like that. This way, if they knowingly provide the space to have the party, even though they didn't provide the alcohol, they're accountable.
Okay.
And I think that's fine to look at, but I guess as far as help from us, as far as, I guess my feeling is you go after the ones that are failing this multiple times and try to get the point across versus punishing everyone for,
And we will do that.
Yeah.
We will do that. I guess to kind of sum this all up, we don't think our voice is strong enough. You look at the results. We don't think our voice as a coalition and trying to serve the community and improve the health and welfare of our children through limiting substance abuse and alcohol and so on and so forth doesn't seem to be a voice that's strong enough to make any impact on this issue. That's my point.
Okay. Very good. So we'll refer this then to our Public Safety Committee, and if they would review the county ordinance, and John, if you could review that along with them and see if there's anything that we'd want to bring forward after that point. Thanks for the presentation, Don. Appreciate it. Next, Council, we have a presentation by the Fairfield RAGBRAI Committee. Terry, will you be giving that?
Everyone's pointing at someone else. I guess I'll do it. I'm the president. I should. All right. The RAGBRAI Executive Committee met one more time last week. It's been a long process. We've been together for many months working on this, even after the the event was over. We had the grant project or program where we gave out, what was the total on that, Tracy? How many thousands did we give out? $17,000 in local grants. But we had some funds left over that we had earmarked for what we call a legacy project or projects, something that would have a physical lasting appeal that people could look at and say, see, RAGBRAI did that. Just to review, our executive committee, co-chairs myself, Chief Harvey, Tammy Jones, and Dennis Lopp. We had Treasurer Tracy Vance, Secretary and number one workhorse Terry Baker, and her lovely assistant Rustin Lippincott to round it out. A little role reversal there. So we had some funds. We decided to give $1,000 to the Loop Trail. They are putting in, how many, Jessica?
Nine
Nine.
bike pads with 18 bike racks.
Yeah, so 18 bike racks around the trail. We thought that was a deserving project. So you can ride your bike on the trail, then lock it up
Well, that
and
doesn't
walk.
cover the whole amount.
It doesn't cover the
No,
line.
that
No.
was just the
It only
generous
covers the
country.
cost of the plaque that says, thanks to RAGBRAI.
Really?
Basically.
No, come on. All right. So,
No, we were grateful to receive it.
yes, very deserving. There so many other deserving projects, but what really hit us was this new threat to the trees on Central Park. About 25% of the trees are ash. We have an insect infestation in Jefferson County, and those ash trees are in danger. The idea that the Central Park wouldn't look the same in 5 years from now or so when RAGBRAI comes again really struck us. So we decided to give all the remaining funds to the Parks and Rec Foundation, specifically for a replanting effort on Central Park. This should help them get larger trees, more substantial trees to replace the ones that will be lost to the emerald ash borer. So I have a check here for $6,153.84 that I would like to present to our friend Derek Wolfcool on behalf of Fairfield RAGBRAI.
Can we have Pam?
Oh, of course, Pam. Pam,
And
where are
Dr.
you?
Cochran?
Sure, everyone, come on up. Photo op.
That was great.
The chemicals are toxic nowadays.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, everyone with the RAGBRAI committee. It really caps off yet another great appreciation for everything the community did to prepare for RAGBRAI, and to see the fruits of this through this donation, I think, is very fulfilling for everybody. So really appreciate that. Next, Council, we're going to have a presentation on the status of our outdoor pool and recreation center from the task force. We also have Dave Burbach from Burbach Aquatics with us this evening for a report on the pool construction and to answer any questions. But I'd first like to invite Tom McMahon, our task force chair, for his presentation. Tom?
Thanks. Well, we did want to take just a little bit of time to let you know where we're at today and kind of what our plans are. The task force met most recently a couple weeks ago, really to rethink what we're doing, how we're doing it, what should we be doing differently. You know, if you look at today, we've between the city and private donations, we've raised $6.7 million. So that's, you know, little more than 30% out of whack with where we need to be to move forward. So we were definitely thinking, how do we do this better? How do we do it differently? The facilities committee itself has gone back through the designs of both the pool and the gym, trying to pull out costs, trying to think about maybe how do we phase certain things, how do we do certain things later, but let's get the facilities up and open. They're still working through that. They've not finished it. We're asking them to give the task force and city council their proposal for what this would look like. And so pretty excited about the opportunity. I mean, some of them are not difficult things. I mean, there could be, and you'll be able to hear from David, but you know, you could prepare to have a pool with a slide and just not put the slide in right away and save funding in that way. There's lots of ideas on both sides. Our hopes are that we can come up with enough reduced costs that it seems to make sense that it is a new project, and that with a new project we would go back to our county supervisors and ask them to help us do a second vote, and actually I would say a first vote for a new project, but we think that funding is critical on a number of levels. We've certainly thought about funding at the state level, all of which requires us to have county approval. So without that kind of vote, those funds aren't available to us. We're continuing to move forward as if that's happening. That's a part of the funding. And we know we're renewing our efforts on the whole fundraising side of it. I think you probably understand after the vote, we kind of calmed down for about a month. Didn't really do much, but we are back out trying to raise additional funds. As I look at it, we have opportunities, and I think the task force is very confident we'll get this done. It's just not ready to be done. When we look at our plans that we have today, if our timing works out and we get through those things, we think we're in a go position next spring. Don't know the exact month, but next spring to move forward if we did that. If we had the funds raised, if we've got the design work done, if we get a positive vote, then we would be in a position to open a pool in June of 2015. Last we talked, we were saying 14, but it's June of 2015. The task force and me personally, I'm thrilled with what the city did in acquiring the land west of the Roosevelt Center. Obviously, it's clearly in our plans to head that way. So the task force is back to work. We're also looking for some new volunteers. So if you have constituents that have been talking to you and saying, we need to get this done, we need to do it now, please send them our way. We'd love to have them. There is a lot of work to be done, but again, we're really confident that we're going to get there. So with that, any questions for me?
Tom, first of all, I appreciate the check-in. We're pleased that the task force is still excited about the project moving forward and really puts it in the perspective that it's in, and that 70% of the money has been raised and committed, and that from the very beginning this was a public-private partnership that we all committed to. Our bonding reflected that as well. The vote that the city took was for both projects. And everyone is working to move both of them along as quickly as possible. So we had this discussion a month ago when we were preparing to purchase the property behind the Roosevelt Recreation Center, and I think everybody was on board, but also anxious to hear from the task force side, because you really have been responsible for a lot of the energy behind this and are responsible for that for the largest portion of the project, which is the private money. We have not lost sight of that, and we know that there's a lot of work that goes into that. So we really applaud you for that, and support you in continuing that effort.
Well, I look at all these potential donors out here. Expect a call.
Yeah, envelopes on the way out.
Yeah, envelopes. We got pledge cards are out there.
Outside the door, probably. We
Yeah,
can't do it in
okay.
here. Any other questions for Tom at this point? And then after that, we'll invite Dave Burbach to give us an update on the pool project by itself.
Okay.
Okay, Tom,
Thank
stay
you.
tuned. We may have some more questions after Dave's presentation. Okay, Dave, would ask you to come on up this time.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a pleasure to be here tonight in beautiful Fairfield. I've handed out two small single-sheet schedules. The first would be the summation of the opinion of probable construction cost, and that's a columnar type of handout. The print's kind of small. Dollars are not, but the print is small. So, and then the other is the timeline for the facility, and that handout looks like this right here. What I'd like to do is take a couple minutes and review the timeline. What we're looking at is having this project out for public bidding. And if you were to look at line item 6, we would be out for bids in January of 2014. In other words, this coming January. We at Burbach Aquatics think it's very important to get this project out for bids as soon as possible after the holidays. We've had some negativity on the cost of some of the public works projects. In other words, with the economy slowly starting to wake up, we're finding in some geographic regions a shortage of qualified bidders. And when we have a shortage of bidders, it becomes a bidder's market. And in fact, we had two projects in July and August of this year that we actually pulled from the bidding cycle. And we're going to be bidding those in January. So with the concerns over inflationary cost, which we're seeing, and the shortage of contractors, we think it's absolutely critical to get these projects out for bid.
Why do you have a shortage of contractors?
Well, that's a good question. The reason we see a shortage of contractors in some geographic areas is because for so long the economy was stagnant. So folks retire, they close their businesses and so forth. And then when we see it, just an uptick in the public bidding, they're overwhelmed with the number of projects.
How far do you think we're going to be pulling from then for our project?
Well, that's a good question. I would say that, let's say I'm in Fairfield, I would say it'll be a 200-mile radius, particularly if we start at the beginning of the year, because there's this mindset that I've seen over the years, whereas if we were to bid this before the holidays, folks are finishing up their fiscal year 2013. After the holidays, they're worried about fiscal year 2014. And they want to get some projects in so they can cover their administrative and their basic cost of operating a business. And they'll tend to be competitively priced to do that. And once they get, their workload at a certain percentage, then they will be less willing to gamble as much, which means the cost then, of course, would be more. So.
Dave, do you have other projects for other communities that your company's working on that will go to bid in January?
Yes, we do. We have the two that we carried that we did not put out for bid this summer. They'll be going out for bid in January.
And will you be inviting those contractors to bid, like a pool of contractors to bid on this?
Oh, absolutely. What we've done is we've put out the advance notices. We've been talking about this January bidding for quite some time. And because of that, we have to, make sure everybody's aware that your project's coming up. Just standing here, I'm just going to take a wild guess and say we probably have 4 or 5 requests for plans at this time for your project.
Anybody that you've discussed it with that's interested, or just requests?
Well, sure, they call in. They'll
Okay.
see the advance notice, which we place in the trade magazines. And then they'll call in and request, how do we get the plans and put us on the list? So,
Okay.
like I said, there's going to be 4 or 5, maybe 6 entities that have requested plans. So, it's a good sign.
So if they're coming from that far, do you think your numbers for mobilization are in check then, or do you think you're going to be?
That's a very good question. We were anticipating.
Things about concrete
That's a
contracting.
very good question, ladies and gentlemen. We have anticipated a kind of a big net, so to speak, and that cost of mobilization is built into the OBCC for this project.
Okay.
And we hope that we're going to be pleasantly surprised. That's what we're hoping. But we don't want to take any chances, so I know from the earlier conversation, we're just a little bit underfunded on the project, so this would be the best contribution that the Aquatics can give to the project is to have a large response and a timely bid opening. And that bid opening would be scheduled for sometime in February of 14. And then there's a potential of a March question. And then what we would do is we would open bids in February, and then we would hold them, the bids, because once they're open, then of course they're frozen. And then we typically have a provision that the city can take up to 45 days, and in some cases 60 days, before you have to act on those bids. So that would give you an opportunity to have a potential referendum results known before you would vote to enter into a contract with a contractor to build your facility. And then with construction beginning, we're looking at April, weather dependent. We would then see this project ready for use, substantially complete in May of 2015. It seems like such a long ways away, but really it's not. It's once we got past the 1999, got in the 2000s, it's always been a little, that's hard to keep the time straight. Then the project would actually be completed in October of 15. So the way that this process works, ladies and gentlemen, is that the contractors would substantially complete the project. In other words, you can occupy it and use it for its intended purpose, recreation. And then at the end of the summer, then any operational issues, there's be punch list items and things, the contractors will then complete those, and they'll submit their paperwork and, lien releases and all those various types of things. And then sometime in Halloween or Thanksgiving of 2015, the project will be officially closed out. So that's kind of where we are. Now, looking at the schedule, we're looking at submitting plans to the city here for your review and approval in January. And then after you bless the plans, they would then go to the state agencies for review. And then we would start the bidding process. So then while we're bidding, the state would review the plans and we'd be good to go.
I don't remember. Is CA overseeing this project? Are they managing this?
No, Burbach will act in that
You're gonna-
capacity on this
okay.
project.
Yes. Yep. And during phase 3, we will assist the city with the public bidding of the construction contracts, and then we will administer the construction contracts and observe the work and act as the city's representative during the construction and inspect the work. Yes,
Question.
Sean.
And I'm jumping ahead a little bit because I know you have a whole nother page to go through.
Yes.
But at the bottom of that page, you said there's a multiplier for construction commencing in spring of 2014 of 1.1, which puts an extra $449,000 onto the cost of the project. So why is it that much more expensive to do the project starting in this spring compared to, I presume, the following spring?
Okay, first of all, the multiplier there would be a factor that we apply against the original opinion of probable construction costs for the project. And the original would have been a little bit prepared sometime in the past.
Oh,
So,
so if we wait even longer, it'll be even higher multiplier.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, the majority of that $400,000 is actually the interactive play structure, like a castle, squirtable castle, the floatable water walk, water
No.
features and things like that. It's the majority of that 400 there.
No, that's not.
No, Kevin,
that's
what John is looking at is, if you look at those heavy lines there,
yeah. I thought you were talking about down on the bid alternatives, that $40,000.
yeah, the multiplier is 1.1. If we look at going out another year, you'll be easily adding 10 to 15%.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
so it's a
Currently,
multiplier
you're just
from,
adding 10% as a contingency.
That's how much went
Right
since the
now.
original, yes. And
multiplier
then-
from your original estimate, which was
Yes.
several months ago.
Yeah, you also
Now-
have it on the alternatives, so.
Now, if for example, if first-time jobless claims were to rise again, if there's some other factors our firm uses, and Ed's more familiar with all those, but in his business, but we have a number of factors that we consider, and then it is possible for that 1.1 to be, for example, 1.09, in a couple months. It's also possible for it to be 1.1.
And
one.
interest rates as well on our borrowing will be a part of this because, the
correct.
picture is right now, you can look at interest rates slowly starting to creep up at least over the next 6 months.
But I think, Council, the big picture here is, January is going to be an ideal time to go out for bidding for a project like this if you do wait any longer. And so if we can get our county supervisors to help us with this schedule as well by scheduling a vote in March, then we should be able to, give an answer to the public about the project moving forward.
And then you'll note that in concert with the issues of our funding, we have provided a base project when you look at the OPCC, and then we have the alternates in a second grouping on that page. So, and that's done out of respect for your budgeting situation.
Great.
And could you speak for just a minute about the asbestos inspection? Is that for the removal of the current pool?
Yes, it is. There's the
Pipe wrappings and other, maybe floor
that is
tiles.
correct. That is correct. The state of Iowa requires that we have a asbestos inspection completed. That would be exactly what Kevin said. Asbestos it can appear in places you may not think of. So we had one that the caulking, believe it or not, had asbestos in it. How they found that, but so we had to have that removed. So that's a couple $1,000. But it has to be done. So we'd like to do that this fall. I think October, and then that'd be complete in November. So of course we wanted to get that done so there wasn't any surprises. So that's the objective here.
Yes, and there's a couple of other ways that we're thinking about doing this that would save some money, and one of those would be the building itself. The entry building itself would be bid separately than the general pool project, so that, the likelihood or the hope there is that local contractors get in on that project. That's going to lower the cost of that project substantially, we feel like. There's the hope that 12%, on a good budget or on a good bid out time, maybe you can hit 12% lower than what this estimate is at 4.3, and that puts you somewhere in the 3.8 or 9 range when it comes to actual construction cost. But I think that's one important question that council needs to consider, Your Honor, is you look at I don't have my glasses on, unfortunately, but 3.941 there, and then down below with the additions. And those additions, when you look at them, interactive play structure, floatable water walk, the pool heater, PA system, water features, this is all the water features that go into the pool. We're, if we do this project, spending a substantial amount of money on a pool, and it's not like it's a competition, but you can go to Washington, you can go to right down the street to several different cities surrounding us who have pools, many of them built in the last 10 years, and they have those water features. Most pools do when they are finished. So that's a big question, doing this pool and doing the pool. Shall we spend $3.6 million on something, which is basically purified water or treated water in a hole in the ground, or will we have a complete pool project? If we do need to make that decision down the road after we bid this, and if we do that, then I think we have a substantial need before us. We have only $3 million that we are allowed to borrow here, and even at a 3.8 or 9 million cost on a good day, you can see that there is a gap funding issue there. So the county vote does loom quite important in that. Of course, some of our money, that $3 million, at least a dollar of it, let's say, or whatever, 100,000, 200,000, has to go to the indoor building per se. I know it's one big pool of money, but let's just imagine it like that. And so what you end up with is a scenario where that gap has to be filled by an entity, whether it be the county or whether it be the committee, but certainly by one of our partners, one potential and one actual as of today. So I'd say we have a pretty heady decision to make at that point when that bid actually comes back in late February, early March. So.
Well, I view it a little bit differently because from our presentation, there's also fundraising that's going to continue as well, so there will be more private dollars. We just hope when we get to that point in March, we know what our costs are going to be from our bid from the pool. We have good numbers from our rec project facility as well, and then we can make decisions to go on both projects based on having all of the money in hand, or at least pledged, and then it's just a matter of working on the financing. But Tom, task force feel comfortable going ahead with this schedule to get our bid documents in place so that
We haven't seen the schedule, of course, but if the timing of going out for bids in January, we think that's great.
Okay.
Definitely a decision date in March.
Okay.
Would be wonderful. That's kind of what we're planning.
Good.
We're
So
hoping for,
then what I'd like to do then is for the council to approve the schedule that Dave has provided with us, contingent on some of the other pieces coming together.
Right.
But we will get a chance to look at those bids, hopefully at a point when we know more about the total dollars in the project. So.
Ed, can I ask, is there a commitment to spend additional funds between now and the end of the year?
There would be certainly on putting together plans and specifications, but Dave, Kevin, I'll have you answer that.
I would say yes would be the answer to that question. Of course, we do have some time here. I'll let Dave get into that in a second. We do have some time as an extension from Burbach. We do appreciate that. That's a very wonderful gesture. But there is a clock on that. But there's also a clock on our commitments, and I think they kind of match up. What would be about the time that our first installment, if you want to talk about that for a second, Dave?
Are you referring now to the
installment of payments from us for bid documentation,
or for
schematics?
The contractor?
Just schematics and bid documentation.
Okay, sure. If I remember correctly, we had agreed to withhold billing for, was it calendar year 2013? Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think it was, exactly.
That's kind of
about the time we were going actionable with those documents, using them for their intended purposes.
So then you would be looking at a bill from us for part of phase 2 in January. So February probably payment. So I wouldn't want to lose any weight or anything, so I went for food, of course, so we want to be careful about that. So that's humor, folks. I'm an engineer.
So anyway, Tom, I think that's good news. Nothing additional in 2013. So
one thing I should point out, Mayor, just respectfully, if you were to take a look at line item number 10 on the schedule,
main pool the
number 10 says final decisions on bid alternates. The way that we structure our documents, not only will the buildings, the bathhouse, the mechanical building be a separate contract, as Kevin talked about, but the final decision on the bid alternates could be put off as late as June of 2014 per our construction documents. It is common for us to do that because, as you know, we only work for municipalities, and the vast majority of those projects will have capital campaigns, and they will be ongoing at the time that we're out for bids. So those are documents that language is in our documents is very common. Many of our documents, the contractors do not have an issue with it as long as we make it a reasonable time where it doesn't impede, construction. So.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out. So, Council, you see that that's at the bottom of the page that was presented, the bid alternates you would have that amount of time to make a decision on whether those elements would go into the pool or not.
Yep, it'll be on the timeline, it's line 10 is the date.
And they either go into the project and they are, the project is finished and it's complete when it's complete, or you would do what you call stubbing out for those things. You would have the water line would be going to that tower structure, but of course the tower structure wouldn't be there. It would be a cap over that with a flap cover.
And so I could see this as maybe a good fundraising opportunity because someone, we said, well, we got this pool, but we'd really love to have a slide. And so that would, it might be easier for someone to come up with a donation for a slide than just in general for the project. So,
John, that's precisely correct.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons we like to have the deadline for the bid alternates to be several months after construction starts.
Right.
Because you have this community urge to have the project beautiful and, complete. And that's part of the strategy. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I have one final question.
Sure, go ahead.
So you had mentioned the bathhouse and some of these other items will be taken out for local contractors. What percentage of this will be local contractors from your experience?
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, I just want to be clear, though, that separating a contract for like the bathhouse and that, any qualified contractor can bid on that. We can't just limit it to a geographic area. But
our hope would be that local contractors would bid on it.
Yes, 93% of our construction contracts at Burbach Aquatics are awarded to quote-unquote local firms. That's typically within a 20, 30-mile radius of the project, depending on what part of the country you're in. Some areas it's a couple hundred miles because there's nothing, but here you're probably in that, 30-mile range, I would say. So that would be suppliers, subcontractors, subs, people that provide labor on projects. Those would be the opportunities. And while we certainly can focus on Contract 3, general construction, we don't want to lose sight of the fact that in the pool mechanical, which would be the second contract, that there will be excavation, aggregate, and so forth. That would be, we would encourage the bidders to use local sources for those. In Contract 1, which is the pool construction, it is very common to have local labor companies provide labor for the project. Also, the latest thing now is they will have local contractors do the flat work. I've seen numerous contractors doing that recently, and it's because of that aforementioned shortage of people. So they will.
Who do
then
you mean
sub
by
out.
they?
They would be the prime contractor for the pool. The pool contractor would actually sub out the deck to a flat work contractor,
Okay.
and the vast majority of those are local firms.
Okay.
Meaning that if on the pool building, for instance, the city would be the general contractor, not the general contractor over the pool project.
Right. Yeah, I was just curious how much local,
Okay, I'll answer that question. Now, you're looking at, easily, when you look at the material cost and so forth, I'll just give you just off the top of my head number, 50%.
Okay.
And that's a conservative number. Because you have things like rebar and things, that's generally not available locally. There are certain common things that do have to be trucked in, but the ready mix concrete, the aggregate, the excavation, as I mentioned, labor sources. We've got 5-6 projects right now under construction, and I'll bet you almost all of them, it's local suppliers providing that material and labor. So now at the time that the bids are opened, then there's a grace period. There's like 7 days or 10 days. Then the lowest, bona fide bidders will provide a list of subcontractors and suppliers that they'll plan on using for the project. One thing we can do, if it's the council's pleasure, is that when we prepare the project manual, we can provide, if you so desire, a list of all the local firms and the type of service that they do. You're not suggesting that they hire them. You're just providing it to bidders that may not be right from the local area.
I think that would be very helpful.
And we've done that on numerous occasions.
Yeah.
So,
I think that would be good because there's several things on this list I can see that local contractors could be used, and it would be nice to do that instead of bringing them from out of town.
So
and
if like a
potentially we'll be a
chamber-
lot more competitive that way as well.
Oh, there's no question about it. So if the chamber or a group like that, if they have a business group, could provide that list to us, that would be best, because we don't want to appear to be biased in any way. So if we could have that list, we will definitely collate it and place that in the project manual for you.
Great. Thank you, Dave.
Jessica, you and I can work together on that list if you'd like.
Okay.
Use our existing contractors list and we can narrow it down to the area that you want.
Okay.
Great. Thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you.
Before we vote on this, Tom, I want to ask you to come back up. And if you could talk just a couple more specifics about our strategy from the recreation center side, also as far as refining the building design and the construction features, that sort of thing. In the same way that we're talking about this. I know we're not necessarily ready to put together some bid documents, but
Correct.
what's our strategy there?
Well, we're going to meet with Newman Munson, of course, and visit with them about materials, different ways of doing it. You know, at one point, and I don't know the number, but I want to say we've gone through 9 examples, 9 drawings, 9 opportunities with price ranges all over the map. The one that we selected, you know, we think was the right one for our community, of course, but it was a mid-range price. It was not the low, it was not the high, it was in the middle. So definitely looking at some opportunities there. And I know the facilities committee has met once going through that. They need to continue that work, but looking at the same stuff. What do we need to do now, today being fall of 2015, to be open? And what potentially could be faced? Same kinds of things. I mean, obviously we don't want to open up a gymnasium and not have a basketball hoop up. You know, we need a floor. We need those kinds of things. So that is, as you know, the design phase is much further along for the pool than for the gymnasium. I think that's to our advantage today. I keep hearing that we're locked into the pool. I'm not sure that's necessarily true. I think we have some opportunity to make changes, and that's certainly true for the gymnasium. There's no specific goal on. I mean, I've got some personal goals. But the task force itself needs to come up with what's the new price point of the total project.
Good.
And
thanks. And that's enough. I just I think that would be good for the council to see next. I know the facilities committee is working on that, and if there can be a report on some of those discussions and some of those changes, so we get a sense of where we might be.
Sure.
And that too.
Yep.
Great.
Good.
Thanks so much.
Yep. Thanks.
Okay, council. So I'd entertain a motion then to approve the schedule at least as it's going to take us through January, where we would be submitting plans, specifications, and review for bids for the pool.
So moved.
Moved by Hallie.
Second.
Second by Rasmussen. Any discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you for coming down tonight, and Task Force, thank you again for everything that you're doing and for your presentation tonight. Really encouraging to hear all the good work going forward. Next, council will move to a resolution approving a tax abatement for 2312 Lake Trail Drive, I think, and that's a property, a residential property valued at approximately $250,000. Kevin, do you know, is this in what stage of construction this is at? Is it?
I think they're in the beginning of doing this piece of construction, and we find it to be in order. Oh, you want to speak to that?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Terry Smith. It's just about done.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So-
Thank you very much. So that's the appropriate time to be asking to be pursuing the abatement. Appreciate that.
Within a week.
Congratulations.
Good progress. Sorry about that.
Great.
I guess it's almost done. One challenge we did run into with this, Your Honor, is in our sewer code, when it says sewer taps, we were just talking about this today, it says for building right now and not occupancy. So on some level, when you look at a huge multifamily like a 12-plex or 24-plex apartment complex, that's not a big deal because the modus operandi of the industry is just to put meters in for each one of those occupancies because obviously the renter pays the bills. But what we're running into maybe a little bit of a challenge is going to be in the future is going to be duplexes and triplexes, homes that have been transferred into duplexes. Some of those legally, mind you, and some of them not. We're not even aware of them, and we just run up on them, and the work has been done. This is a good illustration of the challenge you have when you don't have the building code, as we do not, and you don't have a CO, what's called a CO, which is a certificate of occupancy, and that's issued after the final fire inspection on any commercial or residential building that's being inspected through building inspection practices. We don't have those. So as a consequence, I think down the road, we're probably going to find lots of instances where we find duplexes, like I said, they're either legal or they're not. But homes that have been transferred into duplexes or new duplexes and this and that don't have meters for each of the occupancies, only the building itself. And that is going to present a problem for us. And one of the things I'd like to do going forward, and I'll present this on our next agenda for our utility committee meeting, is making that occupancies. Each occupancy must have its own meter. I think that's a weak point in our legislation right now, but it came up when we were looking at this issue. I think today we had a discussion of it. But
is that not the case in this building?
I think this one has one. Did the gentleman leave?
No.
I think this one actually has one meter, does it not, for the duplex?
It has two electric meters.
Now.
It has one water meter.
See there, that's, yeah. So it's going to be a challenge going forward. I just recognized it today. I was going on vacation for most of the week last week, but it is something that I'd like to talk to you about when we get a chance. But it is something I think is going to represent a challenge to us. And it's two ways. On some of these instances, you're going to find duplexes and triplexes that are not authorized by the city. And so, because a lot of the times the building permits aren't being gotten, there's not been a big emphasis on that on a regulatory level because, of course, we haven't traditionally had a building code or been very aggressive in that kind of planning and regulatory behavior. So I think there is a challenge out there waiting on us, but I think that's something we will be bringing forward fairly quickly to council to get repaired.
Thank you, Kevin.
Move for approval for the tax abatement.
Okay, moved by Revelinsky,
Second.
second by Ledger-Kalin. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Revelinsky.
Yes.
Ledger-Kalin.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Hamas.
Yes.
Boyer.
Yes.
Hallie.
Yes.
Hamilton.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, council, we have a second reading for the vacation of the alley for Schaus-Vorhies, and that is the east-west alley on the north-south alley of Block 19, Railroad Edition.
Your Honor, I would like to request a waiving of the third reading or additional readings on this one because basically it is acting as a loading dock for Schaus-Vorhies. Extenuating circumstances have us having a bit of liability from that.
Okay, there's a request by our city manager to suspend the rules. We have had one reading of this ordinance.
So you're worried about liability between now and our next meeting in 2 weeks?
Yes, I haven't seen Mr. Murphy show up yet, but I would hate for that to happen. It is a loading dock on an industrial facility.
How long has it been used as the loading dock to this point?
My point. Exactly. As luck would have it, now would be a bad time for something to happen. So, and there being no other reason, there is no other interest involved, and there is going to be a easement issue to the one person that would have an interest otherwise. So, it's
One thing that we want to make sure if we're going to waive a public reading is that there's no public comment on this issue. Maybe we haven't had the public hearing tonight.
Correct.
Is there anyone here, I wonder?
Well, we would still have a public hearing.
Well, tonight we'd have our public hearing, but what I'm saying is
Okay.
before we waive the rules to vote on this, I'd just as soon know if there's anyone here to speak on it.
Sure. I think that's
is there?
a good idea.
Well, my head is spinning about order. Let's see. We open the public. Yeah, we can open the public hearing. Well, that's fine. We're not going to take a vote until we've closed the public hearing, so that's fine. We'll open the public hearing then for this second reading of the ordinance and ask if there's anyone who wishes to address it. Okay, seeing no one, we'll declare the public meeting closed, and thanks, John.
And I feel more comfortable
right.
Suspending the rules,
That's
and I would
fine.
move to do so.
Move to suspend the rules by Revelinsky.
Second.
Second by Hamas. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so rules have been suspended. We'll then take a motion to move this from the second to through the final reading.
So moved.
Moved by Revelinsky.
Second.
Second by Boyer. Any discussion? Now please call the roll.
Revelinsky.
Yes.
Boyer.
Yes.
Hammes.
Yes.
Hamilton.
Yes.
Hallie.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Ledger Kalin.
Yes.
Okay. And council, next we'll jump then to a resolution authorizing the conveyance of this real estate to Schaus-Vorhies, now that we have made it law. So entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Moved by Hamilton.
Second.
Second by Rasmussen. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Thank you. Next, council, we have the second reading for vacating an alley for First United Methodist Church. Any similar requests, Kevin, or are we going to?
Similarly, in this situation, there's only one other impacted or involved citizen, and we have the expectation of that easement being put in for that citizen as well to allow for access. I do understand that the alley in this case will not be closed down to public traffic either. There won't be any gating of it or anything, so actually it will be open to public traffic nonetheless, essentially becoming a public way in 7 to 10 years.
And part of their interest in doing this was to pave it. Are they still planning to pave it this year?
Exactly right. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure. I think we're giving them the wherewithal to do that, but I'm not sure that that's going to take place late in the season.
Okay.
So I would make a motion to move from the first or the second to the third reading.
Second.
Okay, motion by Hamilton, second by Revelinsky. We'll also open the public hearing at this time. Ask if there's any comment on the vacation of this alley. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We have a motion and a second to approve it from the second and third. Please call the roll.
Hamilton.
Yes.
Revelinsky.
Yes.
Ledger Kalin.
Yes.
Hallie.
Yes.
Boyer.
Yes.
Hammes.
Yes.
Rasmussen.
Yes.
Thank you. So we will not be, we'll be tabling the resolution to convey that real estate until our next meeting. So we have a resolution to accept the land transfer. And Kevin, I know you've been over this with the council once. Would you mind going over that again?
Yes, everyone.
This involves the Whitney property.
It does.
Yeah.
And the Dairy Barn property. Everyone should have a copy of a plat of survey in front of them with some red marks on it showing parcel B and parcel A. The orientation of this would be where it says plat of survey, that's going to be where 34 is coming through. And you'll notice the small triangle at the western south end of that property. If you're staring at the dairy barn, you're looking straight at the dairy barn, that would be on the right side of it, the south western side. And you can see how that cement wall kind of turns and goes north right there, causing a bit of a pinch. In that back area where you drive around, that's that little triangle. Again, it is marked on the side if you'd like to go out and actually walk it. It's about 5 feet difference down there at the right triangle side, the hypotenuse side as well. The parcel A is the drive-in that currently goes to the Whitney property, the personal property, and the dairy barn. That line you can see there again, it's marked there too with the flag on the site. It came over into the median, that grassy median that was always between us and them, technically our property. At this point, that would be that line down at the Deere's property on the front of the road that moved, that's where it moved to. So the whole property shifted to the traditional survey, the first survey that was done years and years ago, that had the Deere's marker being as they thought it was originally. So this was a bargain that was struck with owners of the dairy barn, and we very much appreciate those folks and their willingness to work with us on the project. An iconic location, an iconic business, and a couple of fine local people running that. And so it's all worked out very well and to our benefit and theirs.
Kevin, so in other words, we're giving them parcel B and they're giving us parcel A?
We're giving them parcels A and B. Mm-hmm. That was part of the deal, that we gave them parcels A and B, which are very small.
Giving the dairy bar?
Yes, we'll be deeding over to the dairy bar both parcels A and B, those small slivers of property respectfully that do the deed.
And this is essentially just clearing up boundaries that
Yes.
should have been done many years ago. So
Parcel A is a response to the bad boundary that Dan's talking about, and Parcel B was something that was worked into that agreement as well because of the way the lots worked out. It wasn't to our advantage, and it was to their disadvantage. And, considering, you'll see later on the site plan, considering doing a bit of an entrance there on that southwestern corner part where that triangle is, related to our facilities, but that's down the road. In the meantime, the big issue here is Parcel A and B would be deeded over.
But, forgive me, but
No, it's fine.
why, the dairy bar wasn't really part of our
No.
transaction here. We bought a piece of property, not from them. But why are we just giving the neighbors something?
Because when we showed up,
I don't quite understand.
When we showed, I'll go back. I think it's important we do go back. That's a good idea. When I showed up, or we showed up on the scene, the property was surveyed from the west coming east many eons ago, and that had the deer's line being at a certain point, and there was a pin marker at that point. All right, so there's the pin. We're good. Not so much. When we looked at buying the Whitney property, it turned into quite a muddy deal because what had happened is someone later down the road, some young buck come out there in 1950 and surveyed the other way, going east to west, and it created a gap of about 8 feet that didn't exist, right? Because
So it's just a survey problem.
it created a survey muddy problem with the abstract, and we're going to have trouble getting a hold of the property. Now, this would have been the case no matter who wanted to buy it, obviously. We agreed, as you recall, to pay the engineer to go over there and shoot both these pieces. While I was over there with John, and we were negotiating a deal with the Deers and with the dairy bar owners to try to get this deal done to be able to buy the Whitney property and establish our lines. Basically, Parcel B came into the discussion, and rightly so, I think, from the ownership if I was the owner of the dairy bar, that certainly would have been part of the discussion as well. It seemed like a legitimate thing to do, and it actually helps us get a straight line down through there. So when we do an entrance there won't be any combative issue with trucks coming around the dairy bar and exit of our property. Because if we do one there, it'll be an exit only. It won't be an entrance. It would be an exit only.
And we have already purchased this property based on those boundaries, so this is something that we just have to do to convey that.
Right, that's fine. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Moved by Boyer,
Second.
second by Ledger Kalin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same sign. Thank you. Next, council, this evening, as Michael had reported earlier, the Environmental Committee did have a meeting that was attended by the DNR, Iowa Trees Forever, our staff, local forester. We also had a representative from IDOLS, who is actually curiously really in charge of this whole area within the state about quarantining areas where there are pest problems. We will be quarantined at a certain point in time. That announcement will be coming in the next 3 or 4 months. Jefferson County will be quarantined. I believe Des Moines County is being quarantined, and a lot of the buffer counties will be as well. So this emerald ash borer is a pretty serious problem, and the quarantine really involves cut wood and moving in and out of the area and taking with it the pest and spreading the problem. But that's part of what we have to address. I think the other more proactive and positive thing that we have to address is that as we start to identify those trees, not only in our right-of-way or our property and parks that have to be dealt with, that would have to be taken down as they die. There are going to be residents that are going to need to do this as well. And planning for the future in terms of the trees that we will eventually replace them with is something that needs a lot of consideration. Back in the 1960s, when the Dutch elm disease struck really the entire country, a decision was made locally to plant ash trees. And here we are. So we're thinking diversification this time around. So we have a lot of expertise in our community, fortunately, and a lot of people who really want to dedicate themselves to helping us solve this problem. So we have had a commission in the past that has dedicated itself to trees and tree health and safety within the community, and we want to re-enliven that with appointment of a committee tonight. And I have 4 members, the public, who will participate. At this time, there are several others that I have asked, and I'm just awaiting answers, and then 3 others that would be ex officio members who are part of our staff. So I'd like to ask for your approval tonight for Susan Romero, Alex Green, Ray Len, who is a forester with the DNR, Kim Keller from Iowa State Extension, and the ex officio members would be Pam Kraft, Derek Wolfcool, and Scott Tim.
Your Honor, may I make a request? I would request, even though it is listed on our agenda, the City Tree Committee, I would request that we call it the Fairfield Arbor Committee, not only because it just sounds a whole lot cooler, but because also on grant applications, and it may do a little bit more than just tree specific, putting in trees. It may be a little bit more activities that are related to tree efforts. So I would request that the Fairfield Arbor Committee be created tonight.
That's fine. You know what arbor means, actually?
It got a little more than just trees.
Shade.
Yeah, it's a little more than just trees. It's bushes.
Yeah, check myself.
The art of green activity, really, as much as anything. But
yeah, that's fine. If council like the sound of arbor better.
No.
No.
Tree committee is something we would create in 1940, I think. The tree committee. Today we'd have a fancy name.
Normal tree.
And see what happens.
That's fine.
Okay, we'll take the friendly amendment and we'll call it the Fairfield Arbor Committee. And put those names before you for your approval.
Move to approve.
Moved by Hallie.
Second.
Second by Boyer. Any discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same sign. Thank you. Next, council, we have a report from the Water, Sewer, Utilities Committee. Karen?
Yeah, we met on September 26th here at City Hall. We had 3 items on our agenda for that evening. The first of which was a consideration for a sewer extension along Libertyville Road across the south portion of our city. There has been discussion by the Russ Committee, and I believe I have that, Regional Utility Service Systems, for putting in sanitary systems per home. It's having them construct new septic systems per property and financial aid that goes along with that, and then a monthly fee for the property owner in order to maintain that system for a 20-year time period. What we were asked to consider by Kevin, who had attended that meeting that Russ held, was that if we were to extend our sanitary sewer to those homes along Libertyville Road, that also increases our potential for the growth that we're seeing and experiencing in our city in that area. And it would also give potential to annexation of that area into the city voluntarily by property owners in that area. Billy Droz was here as a representative of the neighborhood group out there that was first approached by Russ with this. We've done some preliminary work into what it would take to put in sanitary sewer out there, and allow connections to be laid out for existing properties along through there. We feel we need some more discussion about that, and so we aren't taking any formal action on it at this time, but it's something that we feel as a committee has potential for the city to guide what happens in that area rather than an outside entity. So the next item on our agenda was the Utility Financial Assistance Program. We discussed how a program like that would work, what it would look like. We had tasked our city administrator with finding out if there are other communities that have put something like this into place to help out low and moderate income individuals that need assistance. We have also asked our city attorney to give us an update on how that program would work within the confines of state law. So we're going to bring that up at a meeting that we're going to hold on October 28th, prior to our city council meeting. We also had a question from a citizen about a trash recycling reimbursement. Through no fault of anyone in particular, a property was purchased in the late 1980s, and at that time it was listed as a duplex, and it was being billed for garbage and recycling per each residence of the duplex. The owner had converted that into a single-family dwelling. It took the official single-family dwelling title when the assessor's office labeled it that in 1995. It wasn't until this particular owner purchased a second property and realized that, hey, I've been paying double on my recycling and trash for all these years when I should have been paying this. Going on through the minutes here,
Is Mr. Travers here this evening?
I don't see him, no. We were requested that we reimburse clear back to 1995 for this, and it's been the practice of the utility committee that we don't make refunds. We've had several people request that we refund money to them because they had watered their yard and that didn't go into the sewer, and we calculated it was this much in this time frame. We've not granted that kind of thing. There are exceptions where we've granted partial reimbursement if there was a water leak that was discovered and then we had reimbursed the sewer charges, but we had never dealt with anything to do with trash and recycling. So the vote was 2-1 on the committee to recommend that we not do any reimbursement, and Jessica and I had voted to not do a reimbursement. Tony had voted to do a reimbursement of somewhere in between the 2 and 5 year time period.
Actually, the 1 and 2 year period.
1 and 2 year
Yeah,
period.
nothing over 2 years.
Okay. It was our attorney that advised us that there was 2 ways to look at it, either a 2 or a 5 year. So it's our recommendation to the council as a committee that we not do this by a vote of 2-1.
So what was the total amount over for a 2-year reimbursement, approximately?
$7 a month.
I don't know whether we
didn't actually run
we
the number.
actually
It's not
run
a
the
large
number on
number,
that. I think
obviously.
from 1995 it was going to be
$1,500.
Yeah, around $1,500, almost $1,600.
Oh, sure.
So, I mean, it's
Yeah.
not a
Yes.
tremendous amount.
Like
So-
$160.
It's more the precedent that was at question than it was actual the numerical value, but
right.
I think the point was that we came to was that it was the homeowner's responsibility to catch this and the homeowner's responsibility to, say that there was no longer 2 residences there that they were using, and that didn't happen. So
Right, and
I felt like it was their responsibility, not the city's, to know that information.
it's a very good
right,
point.
and when it was brought to the attention of the city, we immediately corrected it, and we're no longer charging him that double structure on that property.
It's important that citizens realize when they do have problems with their bills, they do feel like they're being overbilled or their systemically there's some problem with their service, that they compel us by actually contacting us and calling. Otherwise, we wouldn't know. So I think that's a really good point and something to get out there.
Although I've been the victim of not checking my credit cards every month and finding some charge that I've been charged for 10 months, and usually get a partial rebate on that. So
My wife does that sometimes. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, I would say at this point in time, if Mr. Travers comes directly to the council, we can take it up at this point in time. He's not come, so I think at this point we'll just take it as a report Darren, and not take any further action unless he were to petition the council, but I appreciate your report.
Can I ask a question in terms of how our billing is done? How do we know a property is a single family versus a duplex? Does that information come from the assessor's office?
Well,
The other point.
Well, we do the zoning, of course, and the assessor reflects that, but it's the way our billing system works is there, you're billed differently. There's an identification of whether it's a residential or whether it's a commercial, and if it's a residential, how many services would be listed on the bill. So there's a way for us to tell, but in a case like this, literally, of course, we think it is occupied. We think everything's going normally until the person says, hey, this has been changed. Here again, another pure example of, the lack of the amount of knowledge institutionally that we actually have from our lack of really delving into that building, stuff and the permitting stuff and getting these COs done because we didn't realize, that it had been turned into a single family. This is a reverse declaration of the former point.
All right, so the assessor making that change in 95 did not notify our building department in any way?
No.
We didn't have a building inspector.
Okay.
But and our zoning remained the same on it.
Regardless of a building inspector at that point in time or one at this point in time, it was still the property owners. He needed his input to City Hall to say,
right.
This is no longer a duplex.
He's the catalyst. And the owner's always the catalyst, and that's the problem, really.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll move on then to our Public Safety and Transportation Committee report.
So a couple things to note. We met again about the handicap parking space on Southview Circle in front of that Clements had requested. We recommended that we're recommending to the council that we approve that parking space. And it would be put centrally located, so it would end up being in front of their house, but anyone on the street with a handicap placard could use it. They're aware of that. And then...
Do we want to take that action first this evening, Jessica?
We can.
Yeah. So then would you make that a motion to approve the handicap parking on Southview Circle?
Yeah, so motion to approve the handicap parking on Southview Circle, centrally located on that street.
Okay.
Is that good enough?
Moved by Ledger Kalin.
Second.
Second by Boyer. Any discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All
I just
opposed?
want to make a comment that I'm hoping this will relieve tensions on the street and not add to them, but there are 3 or 4 vehicles that have handicap stickers. So any one of them can legally park there, and this might not be solving anything, but we thought it was worth a try.
You've done your job. Okay, Jessica, go ahead.
And then one just update, Chris Estel from Public Health came and talked to us about the Community Transformation Grant and just let us know that there were some funds that were going to be running out that we needed to try to use. So I'll be meeting with her to get up to speed on what projects she's proposing and that we use those on, and then speak with Kevin about it, and we'll go from there and hopefully can get those funds used before they run out. So.
Yeah, and a lot of appreciation for our public works guys who were getting out there and putting ADA cross walks in with rumble strips. A lot of folks call them truncated domes, others call them. At the ends of where you come off the sidewalk into thoroughfares. We've been out getting those done and got a lot of those done this year. We stayed on schedule with the grant, and we really appreciate their efforts.
Great.
Detectable warning pads.
Truncated domes, engineering term, I think, but nobody knows what that means.
Daryl, thank you.
I don't even know what that means.
Thank the team. Appreciate it.
And then the final item to note that I'll bring up is the proposed deer ordinance that we have for hunting. And basically what we determined is that we'd like to try a trial hunt over a small period of time in January. And so everyone has a copy of that, and that passed unanimously within the committee. And we're recommending that the council approve this ordinance.
What we're going to do is we're going to set a public hearing for that for first reading of the ordinance, but you do have one for review. And Jessica, would you just go over A, B, and C?
Sure. So basically, the city limits, the areas within city limits found within the immediate adjacent to Jefferson County Park, as shown on a map, area designated by the Iowa Department of Natural Resources, and then areas within city limits south of O.B. Nelson Park, Fairfield Middle School grounds, and a continuation of existent wildlife trails to the west thereof and shown on a map designated by Iowa DNR. And then areas within the city limits north and west of Jefferson County Park in the land area of the Fairfield Economic Development Association as shown on a map by the Iowa DNR.
So I have a question. Is A and C what's already being done currently? Is that accurate statement?
I believe so. No.
I think it's slight expansion.
Yeah, that's what.
Whether we know it or not, I mean.
No,
We had approved an area.
We had
Jefferson
approved an
County
area,
Park
the
years ago.
city portion of Jefferson County
I think
Park
it's
has
more.
been approved for years. This is that.
So A and
plus-
C is what we're currently doing.
Right.
No, A is what we're currently doing. C is a little bit of new land that FEDA has offered. Is that correct?
Yeah, because that's
adjacent.
not in the park. Everything that we've approved is in the park. Right.
Yeah,
Anything
so-
that's outside of the park.
So that's
would be-
basically one area. Those two combined is one area. And then B is a separate area.
Okay. So A is what we're currently doing. The additions are B and C. Are the proposed. Thank you.
But again, these are along the city boundaries. They're not allowing people to sit up in some neighbor's backyard and shoot arrows at deer
Correct.
on 4th Street near downtown.
There won't be hunters running through town.
Okay,
Well, and again.
because that seems to be
we'll have-
prevalent in
yeah.
some emails that have been
We'll
going
have
through.
more of a,
There's
we
a
will
lot
have
of
more
People
a public
will be
discussion
shooting
on this.
deer everywhere and running.
No.
and
We're not having,
Trying to
we're
track
not
them
having
down.
bow shoot bys.
No.
Are we going to save that for gun season, right? Is that-
So I'm going to put our local Olympian archer on the spot too. Mr. Matt Stutzman just arrived. So Matt, thanks for coming this evening. We're not going to be having our public discussion about it tonight, but we invite you to come back in 2 weeks, October 28th, and help us sort out how safe or unsafe this can be. Okay, thanks very much. All right, Council, I think, thank you for that report. We will set the public hearing then. I'll take a motion to set that for October 28th.
So moved.
Moved by Hamilton. Second by Rasmussen. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Oh, you're voting no.
Yes.
By voting no, so 6-1. No on a public hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
You don't even want to talk.
Explain
I
that
don't
one.
want to talk about it.
All right.
Mayor, I'd just like
Yes.
to make one comment, and that is, I guess as we take that to a public hearing next week, I'd like the council to consider what would be success or not success in January, if in fact we do this. At this point, one thing that we talked about last year was getting an official count, which we've not been able to do yet. And so I think we need to understand, if we go through it, what's that measure of success or not? And
So I'm
Kinda
looking
understand
at,
that.
I'm looking at Robert Lyons. Robert, have you helped us with this in the past?
Yeah, I tried trying to do it by air many times. It's just very, very difficult. Also talked to the DNR biologist in Washington too about it. It's difficult.
Okay.
That's all I can say. I fly almost every day. I look at the deer all around. It's difficult to make the count. You gotta almost have a helicopter really, is what you need.
And do we know, is there still being a count done at Jefferson County by air?
There is. The first year, they had like between 30 and 40 deer taken. The next year is about half of that. It's been going on for 4 or 5 years. And last year, my son told me they only took 4 deer. So the enthusiasm was there to begin. It's kind of waned. There's not very many people taking them up on the opportunity to hunt. And it's gone smoothly. There haven't been any incidents, there haven't been any accidents.
I guess my question is then, if they're still doing an aerial count with a helicopter?
No.
No, that's not happening?
They're just counting the deer.
Oh, they're just counting, okay. 'Cause
They had a
I
goal.
wondered if we could piggyback on that to really get a a real count.
I had a count between 200 and 300 at one time on that park, and they wanted to call it at least 100, and that hasn't happened yet.
Connie, I can get you that information. I talked with the DNR rep from Washington, and it is by helicopter. You have to pay
Yeah.
all the fuel charges. The helicopter
Yeah.
flies down. They want to do it in the winter when there are no leaves, and they preferably like it when there's snow on the ground. It's a lot easier to spot
Yeah.
the deer. And there was some grant funds that could cover part of it, but I'll get the exact number so we know what we're looking at, and maybe find out what the schedule would look like when that could be done. It would be nice to do it before the trial, but we are talking about 4-day trial. Is that correct, Chief?
Correct. It's, the dates of it are to fall in season with the bow hunting season that's already established by DNR is December 28th and 29th, which is a Saturday and a Sunday, and then January 4th and 5th. So 2 weekends in a row.
I mean, we've got a 6 square mile city, and I would estimate that, given the fact that it's not just a hunting like in the kill, but just in the harassment, in the sense that deer are constantly having to move a little more because people are coming into the environment, you're going to see a higher count per acre in the city than you would probably see normally on an acre. So, I mean, you're looking at 6, in some protected areas, there are probably going to be a large amount more on the density level per acre, like in Obi or in some of these areas we're talking about hunting, as a matter of fact, but also in state preserve areas, so in Lamson Woods. So, there could be anywhere from 300 to 500 in a day easily within the city boundaries. I would think more like 1,000. I mean, just if you're talking just traffic in and out. Traffic in and out, yes, because deer will range anywhere from 6 to 15 square miles. So, I mean, it'd be easily have 1,000. It's like tourists, it's hard to count when you have a public event. Well, no, they're not quite that skittish, tourists. And tourists buy more, but if you look at the amount of tourists you're counting coming to Fairfest, I would say.
They're coming to Art Walk, are they?
They're coming all day long, and they're leaving and they're coming. I'm just saying, it's not that right now how many people there. It's all day long coming in and out of the city.
Deer downtown.
I know.
Okay,
Everybody's laughing.
we're gonna move the wild animal tourism discussion to the post meeting. Catch us on our blog. Anyway, there isn't any business before the council. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Revelinsky, second by Hamilton. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned.